Back in 2006, that amount was like $25 billion. Now, with the recent figure, it is more than 60 billion.
تركيا الاقتصاد رقم 17 في العالم.
Because of the Green Deal, we would like to, maintain our competitiveness to reach out to European markets.
There was a visit from the president of the UAE, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan.
I was also a part of the delegation from Turkey's side, and it was a very productive visit, in my opinion.
The depreciation of the Turkish lira actually affected investor sentiments.
Markets, and then the depreciation do not have a direct impact on their business model.
واحدة من أسرع الأسواق نمواً في العالم، تعزز مكانتها كوجهة استثمارية استراتيجية بفضل موقعها الجغرافي الفريد بين آسيا وأوروبا وبيئتها الاقتصادية المتجددة. تركيا الاقتصاد رقم 17 في العالم. في عام 2024 تجاوز حجم التجارة الخارجية التركية 450 مليار دولار مع تسجيل عجز تجاري منخفض نسبياً عند 82 مليار دولار، مدعوم بزيادة الصادرات إلى 261 مليار دولار، مما يعكس تحسناً ملحوظاً في التوازن التجاري ويعزز من قوة الاقتصاد الوطني. هذه الأرقام تعكس نجاح السياسات الاقتصادية الطموحة التي تركز على الابتكار، تنويع الأسواق وتعزيز الإنتاج المحلي. في هذا الحوار الحصري مع بوراك داغري أوغلو رئيس مكتب الاستثمار التركي، نستعرض كيف تتحول هذه المؤشرات الاقتصادية إلى فرص استثمارية ضخمة في قطاعات حيوية مثل التكنولوجيا، الصناعة المتجددة وتعزيز الابتكار وفتح أسواق اقتصادية جديدة. Your Excellency, it's a great pleasure having you with us.
Thank you. Welcome to our office. It's a pleasure to host you.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to have you with us. Your Excellency, economy is ranked number 17th worldwide. What are the top 3 sectors where Turkey is seeking foreign direct investments and why?
Yeah, we recently updated our FDI strategy, and we are focusing on green FDI, climate FDI. We are focusing on digital FDIs, and we are also focusing on the global value chains related to foreign direct investment projects. So, Turkey is a major economic partner of the European Union, and because of the Green Deal, we would like to, maintain our competitiveness to reach out to European markets, and transforming our whole industries to green is a priority for us. And definitely for the sustainability purposes and etc., we are keeping focused on the green investments. But because of the European Union's Green Deal agenda, we have to act in a much more quick way. Secondly, digital. Digital is shaping all the business models, and it is changing the playground. So to maintain our competitiveness on a global scale, we are focusing on the digital investments. So lastly, the global value chain related. If you look at Turkey's economic development history, under the leadership of President Erdogan since 2003, Turkey has become a regional hub in the region. We are one of the largest exporting hubs in the region for manufacturing industries, for agriculture related products. And to maintain our position in this regard, we would like to attract more and more projects focusing on the increasing exports. And decreasing the imports to more manufacturing of the raw materials and intermediary goods in the country, and other business services facilitating those export related businesses. So these are our 3 priorities.
And so it's very clear that the country is focusing a lot on FDIs. How do you think it affected job creation?
So we have some data on that. So of course, when countries prepare their FDI strategies, job creation is one of the reasons. Export creation is another reason. It's also stated that the FDIs help technology transfer. So we have a long term data beginning from 2006, and it comes to late the 2020s. Back in 2006, the foreign direct investment companies were, employing 500,000 people in the country, and according to recent data, in 2020, it is 1.3 million jobs. So there is a huge increase. And if we look at the overall labor pool in the country, the foreign direct investment companies are employing almost 9% of the employment. And this is, I think, a very good example of how FDI contributed to job creation. Secondly, export. I think it is also important. Again, we have these longer term data, and roughly 30% of the annual exports are coming from the foreign direct investment directly. We are not talking about those multiplier effects, because we know that many multinationals are also procuring from Turkey to their operations in other countries. So this is the secondary the aspect. The direct export of the multinationals, international companies represents roughly 30% of the exports. And again, to give you data, back in 2006, that amount was like $25 billion. Now with the recent figure, it is more than 60 billion. So there is a certain increase. Maybe last comment on the technology transfer side. One of the examples could be the combination of these export figures. 60% of these exports are medium, high, or high technology exports. So this is a kind of good example of how international companies can contribute to the technology transfer. And secondly, the R&D expenditures. Currently in Turkey, we have more than 720 companies having their R&D businesses, R&D activities in the country for the region. So they are not just serving to Turkish operations. And we also know that the 30% of the R&D expenditures on the private sector side is done by the foreign direct investment companies. So I think this can give us some idea on that, how international companies are creating value in the country.
The 1.3 million is for 2024 job creations?
It was data for 2022, 1.3 million. Since these are deep dive data, we have some lag on the data. The last available data is for 2022.
And how has the Investment Office adjusted its priorities to align with Turkey's economic reforms?
The recent economic reform agenda could be, summarized as our medium-term economic program. It started 2 years ago. One of the priorities is to maintain price stability, to foster, the sustainable growth. And it is also, a kind of, framework to improve the investment environment within the country. And there is another, development plan of the country. So it has a target to, increase our foreign direct investments inflows to the country. Currently, we are roughly attracting 1% of the global FDI, and our target is to reach to 1.5% of the global FDI we would like to attract. So coming back to the medium-term economic program, of course, the price stability is a priority. So while we are focusing on our daily businesses and etc., on the project attraction side, we always keep at the core. And to have sustainable growth and to have to improve the investment environment, we have some mandates. There is a platform called this Investment Environment Improvement Coordination Council. It is headed by the Vice President of the country, and we have relevant ministers on board. And we are having the co-secretary of this platform. So we are committed to improving the investment climate within the country. We are actively contributing to the reform agenda, creation of the reform agenda, and implementation of the reform agenda as well. So on the the FDI targets, to grow our FDI share to 1.5%. We prepared our recent FDI agenda, and we are focusing on our key verticals to attract more investments. And we are also identifying the investor profiles to attract more investments from them to our country.
And how is Turkey leveraging the young and skilled workforce to attract more FDIs, especially in the manufacturing industry, advanced manufacturing?
So it is always said by the international investors or the key decision makers of the multinational or international investment platforms that Turkey has certain advantages. One of them is definitely location. The other, advantage is the resilient and high, fast-growing economy. And thirdly, they always say that it is the demographics. It's the, youth of Turkey. It is the, the young population of Turkey. As we all know, the Turkey has a population just over 85 million, and almost, the half of the population is under the age of 34. So compared to especially, to Europe, it's a very young economy. So this young economy, the young population, the Turkish youth is first of all very well educated. So almost more than 900,000 people are graduated from the university every year. They are very well skilled, and they are very flexible, agile, and they are resilient. So especially in a global context that labor is a major challenge for many economic actors. And in Turkey, the companies are still, able to find talent. So, and it is not limited to a certain profile. In Turkey, companies can find people in blue-collar jobs, in white-collar jobs. They can find, workers. They can find software developers. They can find very good engineers. They can find, senior managers or mid-level managers. So all levels of labor and talent is available within the country. So this is definitely an advantage. And this has, this is also, reflected in the FDI projects. So international companies are using Turkey as a talent hub. So when they make an investment decision to our country, they are always, having a kind of, a broader perspective, not just focusing on the domestic market. And in many FDI projects, we can see that they use Turkey as an excellence center for their talent-related operations. And we are really proud of this perspective because in many companies, international companies, we can see more and more Turkish people originating from Turkey, and then they are assigned to appointed to some other global or regional roles. So this gives us a confidence for the following years. Turkey will maintain her competitiveness thanks to this productive youth.
Going back to economic reforms, which in your opinion have proven to be more efficient in enhancing the attraction of FDIs?
If we have a longer term view, Turkey started attracting high amount of FDI since 2003, thanks to the leadership of President Erdogan. And of course, what made the difference was this political stability under his leadership, and then this political stability gave us an opportunity to do reforms. So since 2003, continuously we are making economic reforms. So, and this is a longer term perspective because economic reforms do not happen overnight, and their results can be monitored or can be seen after some quarters. So in the recent years, our focus on the reform agenda is to provide a more suitable landscape for the digital businesses. We are committed to increasing digital investments, and we are committed to sustainability agenda. So if you look at the whole economic reform papers and etc., you can see that digital and the sustainability and the green is driving the agenda. So in the recent years, in the recent period, we had a major reform on the climate law. So this will bring us the emission trading system, for example, which is important for us to continue our journey on the access to European market because of the Green Deal, or some the reform on the digital. Just recently we announced the 5G agenda, so there will be a tender, and just recently one of the telecom operators in Turkey extended their concession for digital infrastructure, so we are committed to increasing our digital infrastructure investments. So some other the reform agenda is focusing on the actually incentives. Maybe this is also valuable to discuss. So because to continue attracting investments from international community and to also encourage the local investors in the country, we definitely need the comprehensive investment incentive agenda. And just recently we introduced some new schemes. Firstly, to focus on technology. Secondly, to eliminate regional disparities. And thirdly, to gain advantage on the current account balance side, on the trade balance side. Firstly, the technology side. We introduced a new scheme called as HIT 30, so high investments for Turkey. So government is allocating $30 billion of resources for the high-tech investments, mainly in energy equipment, including storage, green energy equipment, on the e-mobility side, on the health technology side, and also on the semiconductor side. So we already announced some of the projects. It's a call-based incentive program, and in the following quarters we are gonna have some new calls, and some of the new projects will be available. So we recently introduced some new schemes for the regional investments. So our Ministry of Industry has identified some strategic sectors for each and every city. So they are gonna make some calls on the investment incentive program. So companies with their suitable projects to some specific cities, they will be able to get some more incentives on that. As the last part, the strategic investment, referring to our trade balance side, as we all know, Turkey has a trade deficit, and we would like to cover it. And we are also encouraging investments which are eliminating import of some raw materials and intermediary goods, and to encourage have a positive trade balance side.
Speaking of incentives, are there any new incentive mechanisms that are being introduced in order to attract long-term strategic investors?
So actually, the incentive is also, a part of this reform agenda that I recently, mentioned about. Of course, depending on the feedback of the investors and the investor community, we are quite flexible, and we are able to introduce new incentive schemes that I just recently mentioned.
Okay, you spoke about investments in semiconductors. Is there a number you're trying to target? In this investment?
Yeah, actually the semiconductor, it's a wide industry, from design of the semiconductors to delivery to the last customer.
So it's a full production here in Turkey.
It's a long value chain, and in Turkey we already have players in the design side, and we also have companies on the packaging and testing side, and we definitely would like to have manufacturing of the semiconductors. So this is one of the targets for us for the following years.
How do you assess the partnerships between Turkey and the Gulf?
Sure. The Gulf countries, from very different perspective, we have very tight relations, very strong, very good relations on the political side, on the international diplomacy side, on the defense side, on the cultural side, and etc. But of course, we would like to focus on the trade and investment side. So if you look at Turkey's FDI performance since 2003, almost more than 8% of the FDI came from Gulf countries. So I think this is a valuable amount, and this can be increased. So we think that there is a room for improvement. And for the trade volume, especially in the recent years, we can see that the Turkey's trade with the Gulf countries is increasing very rapidly. So as we all know, we just signed a free trade agreement. Actually, it is called as Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement with United Arab Emirates, with UAE.
Yes.
And we would like to expand, extend our economic partnership with the GCC countries. So we are negotiating a free trade agreement with the GCC countries. I think this is quite crucial to grow our trade, with the region. And definitely after the trade, the investments can grow very quickly and easily.
There was a visit not long ago, probably less than a month ago, from the president of the UAE, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan. So after this visit, do we expect further partnerships?
Actually, this was a high-level visit, and I was also a part of the delegation from Turkey side, and it was a very productive visit, in my opinion. And again, referring to our CEPA agreement with UAE, 3 years ago, we saw the impact immediately. So in up until 2023, the trade volume between two countries was, just a single-digit $1 billion, on depending on the year, because the COVID was, disrupting year. It was $7 to $9 billion, roughly. Just after the CEPA agreement, it grew to almost 20 billion, according to Turkish data. And last year it was 15 billion, because there are some differences in data in both countries. So we saw this quick result on the trade side immediately. And in my opinion, the trade will definitely continue to grow. On the investment side, if you can, if you look at the investments in the recent years, the investment volume has grown. And the FDI stock of UAE companies in Turkey has reached to 8 billion. I think this is a valuable amount, and we are committed to grow. And similarly, Turkish companies started investing in UAE after the CEPA. And just last year, for example, the investments, bilateral investments, almost, at a equal amount. So we can see an opportunity for the bilateral investments, which is a healthy, which is an indicator of the healthy economic relations, in my opinion. Of course, in the recent visit, there were too many, agenda to be discussed, and especially on the economy side and the investment side, there was a huge coverage on the especially AI side, so the artificial intelligence. So we
Which
both
the
know that
EU is focusing a lot on.
yeah,
Yes.
we both know that both countries are, complementary economies in very, different, issues and topics. And on the AI, both countries are, committed to increase, their investments, both UAE and Turkey. And in the recently, there were some investment, projects focusing on AI infrastructure, namely data centers. And we are focusing on, attracting more investments, between two nations, focusing on AI and definitely on some other industries. But for me, AI was the, the most, highlighted discussion topic.
Your colleagues mentioned also more investments in F&B, food and beverage also.
Actually, thanks to the diversified value proposition of Turkey, the UAE companies are also very diversified. In the recent investments, we can see investments in the infrastructure, in financial services. From UAE, a few actors invested in banks or digital banks in the country. And there were some investments into some manufacturing-related areas, and definitely some F&B investments. So we can see some more sectoral diversity, and on the pipeline there are some new projects, and we are hopeful to finalize them.
So does this partnership stand as a success story and as a model to highlight for future collaborations, in your opinion?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the vision of both leadership is to, develop relations in many different verticals, as we mentioned, on cultural, political, defense, and etc. And as the actors on the economic side, on the trade and investment side, we have to, perform in the best way to, realize those targets. And the numbers are speaking, I think, after such a vision of the both leadership, I think we are on the right track to grow the economic relations, bilateral trade and investment relations. And you stated it very correctly. This can be a, example of a success story, how to grow relations.
To what extent is Turkey giving a priority to sustainable investments, in your opinion?
So, sustainability has been a relatively short discussion on the global investment stage, but for us it has been a kind of core priority since 2003. If you look at our journey, back in 2005, we introduced our first renewable investment law, for example. Or if you look at, Turkey's local circular economy program, which is called as Zero Waste Initiative, it has a longer story than some other peer economies. And just looking at the, for example, e-mobility side, so all the countries are now focusing on the EV transformation and etc. Or decreasing the carbon emissions on the logistics and etc. So it started earlier in Turkey compared to some competitive countries in the region. So just to give you some numbers, for example, the installed renewable energy capacity in Turkey is almost 60% now. So I think this is a indicator of how Turkey is committed to the sustainable investments. Or if you look at the e-mobility investments in Turkey, you can see that almost all the automotive OEMs are manufacturing their hybrid or EV models in Turkey. So I think these are some solid and concrete examples of the investments committed to the sustainability. Of course, we mentioned about our reform agenda. So sustainability is one of the key pillars in that, and our net zero emission target is for the year 2053. And we believe that we can achieve it with some more investments. And actually, this creates an opportunity for the investor community. So this is an open call and invitation to investment in our country. If you have an investment agenda in the sustainability field, we are ready to host those investments in our country.
Inshallah. You mentioned the AI sector playing a very big role in attracting foreign investments. What role do Turkish startups play here?
So in Turkey, we have a very vibrant technology ecosystem. And the startup companies or the scale-up companies, depending on their maturity, are playing an important role. So before pandemic, in the years of 2010s, the early stage technology investments were around $100 million in a year. So again, as the government, we had made some reforms and we developed some policy instruments to make sure that the startup ecosystem is thriving in the country. And we can see that in the last 4 years, early stage investments were in total $5 billion. So on an average, it was more than $1 billion. So in Europe, Turkey is the 12th largest startup ecosystem, technology ecosystem. And if you look at MENA, we are the 3rd largest. So and we believe that this momentum will definitely continue. So especially in the recent years, when we look at the foreign direct investment projects, we can see that clearly those technology companies are playing an important role, because they are facilitating $1 billion of transaction, and on the statistics, their contribution is very visible. How about the future? So actually, we have very close relations with the fund managers, with financial investors. It can be venture capital funds, it can be private equity funds, it can be sovereign wealth funds, and or family offices, or even the angel investment networks. So we can see the pipeline thanks to our close dialogue with them. The venture capital funds raised $2.3 billion of funds for Turkey. Some of them are already deployed, but the more will be deployed in the following years. And at the same time, new funds are being raised for Turkey. And we also know that in the next investment rounds of those startups, the investment amount is growing. So we are expecting a better performance, frankly speaking, for the following years. So the current level of $5 billion investment in 4 years, I think we can exceed that performance as well. So just to sum up, the technology investments, startup investments have become a major driver of the FDI inflows to the country.
And how are you encouraging venture capital inflows?
We know that there are different structures. First of all, there are venture capital funds established in some global jurisdictions. We are inviting them to Turkey to introduce them to the company, startups in Turkey. And secondly, the Turkey Capital Market Board, we developed our own legislation, on the fund system. So some of the international fund managers are also raising their funds in Turkey, and venture capital fund managers in Turkey are raising their funds according to the Turkish legislation. So when we cover, when we refer to venture capital fund managers, we are covering both of them. So first of all, the market itself is a big incentive because it is 85 million population, very young and dynamic population, very open to digital, businesses, and they consume a lot of those digital products and services. And what we can see is that this young and talented, labor pool, talent pool is also able to develop globally competitive products or services on the digital businesses. So I think this is an incentive for the all fund managers. Plus, if you raise funds for Turkey, in Turkish legislation, there are a number of tax incentives for them, and they can access to the funding from Turkey because for venture capital fund managers, they need to raise funding from the limited partners. And in Turkey, firstly, Turkey Wealth Fund, they are investing in the venture capital fund managers fund. Secondly, there are a few more state backed funding mechanisms. Plus, they can access to our pension fund managers, so to raise funding. So this is another incentive for the fund managers to establish a fund in Turkey.
Before we end the conversation, I would like to ask you whether you think the depreciation of the Turkish lira actually affected investor sentiments.
So this is a kind of time-related issue. If investors are looking for a very short period of time, this may affect the sentiment in a negative way. But we know that the investors, the foreign direct investment investors, are looking at the country with a broader horizon. So when they invest, they consider the country for at least years. And in the medium term or longer term, the Turkish economy comes back. So and the depreciation, if you have a good business plan, the depreciation does not affect your business or the overall value. So this is we have many examples of the this. And this is a feedback from the many international investors. So since Turkey is globally competitive, many businesses are gaining a hard currency through export. It can be export of goods, it can be export of services, especially in the technology field. They are developing their startup in Turkey, and then they are selling to the whole world. Actually, such depreciation cases are not affecting them. Secondly, the export-oriented companies, on the manufacturing side. So again, they are, their market is global market, and then the depreciation do not have a direct impact on their business model. So for overall, all business sectors or verticals. So in the medium and longer term, all the investors in Turkey, invested in Turkey, they are, happy with their investments. They are getting their satisfactory returns.
Your Excellency, once again, it was such a pleasure having you.
It was our pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.